Did you know that homosexuality was widely accepted in China for thousands of years? In fact, it was even celebrated in literature and art. However, not everything was as it seemed. Gay men faced unique challenges and struggles, and their lives were far from easy. In this video, we'll explore the chilling reality of what it was like to be a gay man in ancient China. Why were they so heavily prosecuted, and what were the consequences for their actions? Stick around to find out more. In ancient China, concubines were women who were kept by wealthy and powerful men for their beauty and sexual desires. But did you know that there were also gay concubines as well? Yep, that's right. Men who were kept by other men for the same reasons. This practice was especially prevalent during the Tang Dynasty, which lasted from the 7th to the 10th century. The Tang Dynasty was a time of great cultural flourishing, and same-sex relationships were openly celebrated in poetry, literature, and art. But being a gay concubine was not all sunshine and rainbows. These men lived in a world that was often cruel and unforgiving, and their lives were filled with danger and uncertainty. First of all, becoming a gay concubine wasn't an easy task. It required a lot of networking, connections, and a certain amount of charm. And even if you managed to become a concubine, your position was never secure. You were at the mercy of your master, who could get bored with you or replace you with a younger, more attractive man at any time. Moreover, the lives of gay concubines were often filled with jealousy, rivalries, and backstabbing. They lived in a world of constant competition where one wrong move could mean the end of their career as a concubine. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of the lives of gay concubines was the practice of bathing the peach. Bathing the peach was a euphemism for the act of castration, which was performed on male concubines to ensure that they would remain sexually attractive to their masters. Yes, you heard that right. Male concubines were often castrated to preserve their youth and beauty. This practice was so widespread that it even became a source of humor in the Tang Dynasty, with jokes about castrated men being used as eunuchs or being unable to father children. But the reality of castration wasn't a laughing matter. The procedure was often performed with anesthesia or proper medical care, and many men died from complications. Those who survived were left with permanent physical and psychological scars. Now you might be thinking that this all sounds pretty grim, and you're wondering why anyone would want to be a gay concubine in ancient China. Well, despite the dangers and uncertainties, being a concubine also came with its perks. For one thing, being a concubine meant having access to wealth, luxury, and power that would have been otherwise impossible for most men. Concubines were often showered with gifts and treated like royalty, which allowed them to live a life of comfort and excess. Moreover, being a concubine also meant having access to education, culture, and the arts. Many concubines were highly educated and well-versed in poetry, music, and calligraphy. They were also often patrons of the arts, supporting artists and writers, and contributing to the cultural flourishing of the Tang Dynasty. But perhaps the greatest perk of being a concubine was the opportunity to form genuine emotional connections with their masters. Although these relationships were often transactional and based on mutual benefit, many concubines and their masters formed deep and meaningful bonds that lasted a lifetime. One such example is the famous relationship between Emperor Xuanzong and his favorite concubine Yang Guifei. Yang Guifei wasn't a gay concubine, but she was one of the most beloved and powerful women in Chinese history. She was known for her beauty, intelligence, and musical talent, and she became the emperor's confidant and advisor. Their relationship wasn't without controversy though, and many courtiers resented Yang Guifei's influence over the emperor. But despite the opposition, they remained devoted to each other until the very end. In fact, their relationship had such an impact on Chinese culture that it inspired countless poems, novels, and operas over the centuries. Yang Guifei became a symbol of beauty, love, and tragedy, and her story continues to captivate audiences to this day. In conclusion, their stories teach us about the complexity and diversity of human relationships and how they're shaped by culture, power, and desire. We can also learn about the dangers and challenges of pursuing one's desires in a world that can be unforgiving and cruel.